What happens when one of Hollywood's biggest action stars comes face to face with a talk show host who seems determined to tear him down on live television? Tonight, we're diving into one of the most explosive celebrity interviews ever caught on camera, where Arnold Schwarzenegger found himself in a heated battle of words that escalated so quickly it left the entire studio audience stunned into silence. This wasn't your typical promotional appearance. This was a verbal war zone where every question felt like a calculated attack, and every response grew more tense than the last. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. And what started as what should have been a light-hearted chat about Arnold's latest projects quickly spiraled into something much darker and more personal. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, letting me know what you think about celebrity interviews that go completely off the rails. The Late Night with Jimmy Kimmel show was supposed to be a routine stop on Arnold Schwarzenegger's promotional tour. The former governor of California and legendary action star had appeared on the show multiple times before, and their previous interactions had always been friendly and professional. But from the moment Arnold walked onto that stage, something felt different. The audience gave him their usual warm applause, but there was an odd tension in Jimmy's smile as he shook Arnold's hand. "Arnold Schwarzenegger, everybody," Jimmy announced as they both took their seats. "Thanks for being here, Arnold. I know you're busy saving the world and all that." There was already a subtle edge to his voice that made Arnold raise an eyebrow. "Always. Happy to be here, Jimmy," Arnold replied with his characteristic accent and genuine smile. "Though I think the world's saving days are mostly behind me now." Jimmy leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting to something more serious than usual. "Well, speaking of your past, I wanted to talk about something that's been on a lot of people's minds lately. Your time as governor of California. Some people are saying you were pretty much a disaster in that role." The statement hung in the air like a challenge. Arnold's smile faltered slightly, but he maintained his composure. "I think that's a pretty harsh assessment, Jimmy. We accomplished a lot during my time in office. We worked on environmental issues, infrastructure, education reform." "Oh, come on, Arnold," Jimmy interrupted, his voice taking on a mocking tone. "Let's be honest here. You were an actor playing politician. You had no idea what you were doing. The state's budget was a mess. Unemployment was through the roof. You basically turned California into a joke." The audience began to murmur uncomfortably. This wasn't the playful banter they were used to seeing on late-night television. Arnold's jaw tightened, but he tried to keep things diplomatic. "Jimmy, I think you're being unfair. Every governor faces challenges, and we inherited many of the problems you're talking about. We made tough decisions and tried to do what was best for the people of California." Jimmy wasn't backing down. He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Tough decisions? Like what, raising taxes while preaching about fiscal responsibility? Or maybe you mean the way you handled the budget crisis by basically kicking the can down the road for the next guy to deal with." "That's not accurate," Arnold said, his voice rising slightly. "We made significant cuts to spending. We reformed the workers' compensation system. We invested in infrastructure projects that created jobs. You're painting a very one-sided picture here." "One-sided," Jimmy laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Arnold, you were literally recalled from office. The people of California wanted you gone so badly they started a whole movement to get rid of you. How is that one-sided?" "I was not recalled," Arnold said firmly, his Austrian accent becoming more pronounced as his frustration grew. "I served my full term. You're confusing me with Gray Davis, who I replaced after he was recalled." Jimmy waved his hand, dismissively. "Details, details. The point is, you were in way over your head. You went from pretending to be tough guys in movies, too, pretending to be a leader in real life. And at least when you were acting, people knew it was fake. The audience was now completely silent, sensing that this had gone far beyond normal late-night comedy. Arnold's face was starting to turn red, and his hands were clenched on the armrests of his chair. Jimmy, I don't know what's gotten into you tonight, but this is not the conversation we discussed backstage. I came here to talk about my foundation's work and my upcoming projects. Oh, I'm sorry, Jimmy said with exaggerated sarcasm. Did I hurt your feelings? I thought tough guys, like you could handle a little criticism. Or is that just another act too? This isn't criticism, Jimmy, Arnold shot back, his voice now clearly angry. This is you being deliberately disrespectful and spreading misinformation. I don't know what your agenda is here, but I didn't come on your show to be ambushed with lies and personal attacks. Jimmy's smile turned cold. My agenda? I don't have an agenda, Arnold. I'm just asking questions that people want answers to. Questions about your failures as a public servant, your failures as a leader, and frankly, your failures as a human being. The last comment hit like a thunderbolt. Arnold's eyes flashed with rage, and he started to stand up from his chair. What did you just say to me? You heard me, Jimmy continued, clearly enjoying the reaction he was getting. Let's talk about your personal life, Arnold. Let's talk about the scandals, the affairs, the way you treated your family. Let's talk about the real Arnold Schwarzenegger, not the carefully crafted public image your PR team has been pushing for decades. Arnold was now fully standing, towering over Jimmy, who remained seated with that same cold smile. You have crossed a line, Jimmy. My family is off limits. My personal life is off limits. I came here as a guest on your show, and you're treating me like I'm some kind of criminal. Well, if the shoe fits, Jimmy said with a shrug, finally standing up to face Arnold. Despite being considerably shorter than the former bodybuilder, he showed no signs of backing down. I mean, let's be honest about who you really are. You're a guy who used steroids to build your body, used connections to build your movie career, and used your fame to get into politics where you had no business being. Arnold's massive frame was now trembling with barely controlled fury as he stared down at Jimmy, who seemed to be relishing every moment of the confrontation. The studio audience sat in stunned silence, many covering their mouths in shock at what they were witnessing. This was supposed to be entertainment, but it had devolved into something much more ugly and personal. You know what, Jimmy? Arnold said, his voice dropping to a dangerous low rumble. I have been in this business for over 40 years. I have dealt with critics. I have dealt with opposition. I have dealt with people who disagreed with my policies and my choices. But what you're doing right now is not journalism. It is not comedy. It is character assassination. Jimmy crossed his arms and tilted his head mockingly. Character assassination. Arnold, I'm just stating facts. You want to talk about your business? Experience? Let's talk about how you made millions in real estate while hiding the fact that you were getting inside information from political connections. Let's talk about how you used your celebrity status to get deals that regular people could never access. That is completely false, Arnold snapped, his accent thickening with each word. Every business deal I made was legitimate and legal. I worked hard for everything I achieved, and I disclosed everything that was required by law when I became governor. Oh, please, Jimmy scoffed, rolling his eyes dramatically. You really expect people to believe that? You expect them to believe that Arnold Schwarzenegger, the muscle-bound actor, became a real estate mogul through hard work and smart decisions. Come on. Even your biggest fans aren't that naive. Arnold took a step closer to Jimmy, his imposing presence casting a shadow over the much smaller host. I am warning you, Jimmy. You are spreading lies about me on national television. You are damaging my reputation with false accusations, and I will not stand for it. What are you going to do about it? Jimmy challenged, his voice rising to match Arnold's intensity. Are you going to terminate me? Are you going to go all Conan the Barbarian on me? This isn't one of your movies, Arnold. This is real life. And in real life, people get called out for their nonsense. The cameras continued rolling as the situation spiraled further out of control. Arnold's publicist could be seen in the background, frantically trying to get the attention of the show's producers. But Jimmy seemed determined to push this confrontation to its absolute breaking point. "You want to talk about real life?" Arnold said, his voice now booming across the studio. "In real life, I came to this country with nothing. I learned English, I built my body, I built my career, I served my state as governor, and I have spent decades trying to give back to the community that gave me opportunities. What have you done with your life besides sit behind this desk and tear down people who have actually accomplished something?" Jimmy laughed bitterly. "What have I done? I've built a career based on talent, not steroids and connections. I've entertained millions of people without having to lie about who I am or what I've done. I haven't had to buy my way into success or use my fame to cover up my failures. You think what you are doing right now is entertainment?" Arnold gestured broadly at the audience, many of whom were now looking uncomfortable and confused. "You think attacking your guests and spreading lies is entertainment? This is not comedy, Jimmy. This is cruelty." "The truth is cruel sometimes," Jimmy shot back. "And the truth is that you've been coasting on your reputation for years. The truth is that you were a mediocre governor who left California worse than you found it. The truth is that you've been living off your past accomplishments while pretending to be something you're not." Arnold's face was now completely flushed with anger, his hands balled into fists at his sides. "I have had enough of this. I came here to have a conversation, not to be subjected to this kind of abuse. You are not a journalist. You're not a comedian. You are a bully with a television show. And you're has been with an ego problem." Jimmy fired back without missing a beat. "You can't handle being questioned about your record because you know it doesn't hold up to scrutiny. You're used to people kissing your ass because you're famous. But some of us aren't impressed by muscles and movie quotes." The tension in the studio was now palpable, with crew members exchanging worried glances and security personnel moving closer to the stage. Arnold looked around the room, his chest heaving with barely controlled rage, before turning his attention back to Jimmy. "You know what the real problem is here, Jimmy?" Arnold said, his voice taking on a tone of disgust. "The real problem is that you are a small, bitter man who gets his kicks from trying to tear down people who have actually done something with their lives. You hide behind your desk and your jokes and your audience. But at the end of the day, you are just a coward who attacks people who are better than you." Jimmy's face darkened at the insult, his own anger finally beginning to show through his calculated demeanor. "Better than me? You think you're better than me? You're a walking punchline Arnold, a cartoon character who somehow convinced people he was real. At least I never pretended to be something I wasn't. At least I never sold people a fantasy while enriching myself behind the scenes." "Enriching myself?" Arnold's voice cracked with indignation. "I gave up millions of dollars in movie deals to serve as governor. I took no salary for that job. Put my career on hold to try to make a difference. And this is how you repay public service? By attacking someone who sacrificed for their community?" "Sacrificed?" Jimmy let out a harsh laugh. "You didn't sacrifice anything, Arnold. You used the governor's office as another role to play. You treated the state of California like it was another movie set where you could pretend to be the hero. Meanwhile, real people suffered because of your incompetence." Arnold stepped even closer, now looming directly over Jimmy, who had to crane his neck to maintain eye contact. "You want to talk about real people suffering? Let's talk about how your show makes money by humiliating guests and spreading gossip. Let's talk about how you profit from negativity and division. At least when I made movies, I was trying to entertain people and give them hope. What do you give them except cynicism and cruelty? I give them honesty, Jimmy snapped back, refusing to back down despite Arnold's intimidating presence. I give them someone who's willing to ask the tough questions that other people are too scared or too bought off to ask. I'm not here to coddle celebrities and make them feel good about themselves. I'm here to hold people accountable. Accountable? Arnold's voice rose to a near shout. You want to hold people accountable? Then why don't you hold yourself accountable for the lies you are spreading right now? Why don't you hold yourself accountable for ambushing guests who come here in good faith? This is not accountability, Jimmy. This is a hit job. The studio audience was now completely silent, transfixed by the spectacle unfolding before them. Some people were recording with their phones, while others simply stared in disbelief. This had gone far beyond anything anyone had expected to see on a late-night talk show. Jimmy stood up from behind his desk, bringing himself to his full height, though he still had to look up at Arnold. A hit job? You're the one who agreed to come on this show. You're the one who put yourself in the public eye. If you can't handle scrutiny, maybe you should have stayed in Austria making furniture, or whatever it was you did before you came here and started pretending to be an American. Success story. The comment about Austria seemed to hit a particularly sensitive nerve. Arnold's entire body tensed, and for a moment it looked like he might actually lose complete control. That is enough, he said through gritted teeth. You have insulted my career, you have insulted my service, and now you are insulting my heritage and my journey to this country. You are everything that is wrong with this business and everything that is wrong with this country. The words hung in the air like a declaration of war. Jimmy's eyes flashed with something that looked almost like satisfaction, as if Arnold had just walked directly into the trap he had been setting all evening. The host took a step back, but not out of fear, rather to give himself space to deliver what seemed to be his final devastating blow. Everything that's wrong with this country, Jimmy repeated, his voice dripping with mock incredulity. That's rich, coming from someone who represents everything that's fake about the American dream. You want to know what's wrong with this country, Arnold? It's people like you who lie their way to the top, who buy their success, who pretend to be patriots while treating this nation like their personal playground. Arnold's chest was rising and falling rapidly, his famous composure completely shattered. How dare you question my patriotism? How dare you question my love for this country? I have given more to America than you ever will. I have served in public office. I have created jobs. I have inspired millions of people around the world to pursue their dreams. Inspired them to what? Jimmy shot back viciously. To lie about using performance-enhancing drugs? To use their connections to get ahead? To treat public service like another acting gig? You're not an inspiration, Arnold. You're a cautionary tale about what happens when we mistake celebrity for substance. The audience was now completely riveted, watching this verbal bloodbath unfold, with a mixture of horror and fascination. Several people in the front row were visibly uncomfortable, shifting in their seats as the confrontation reached levels of personal animosity that seemed almost dangerous. Arnold pointed a massive finger directly at Jimmy's face. You sit there in your comfortable chair, making jokes about people who have actually lived, who have actually struggled, who have actually achieved something meaningful. You are a parasite, Jimmy. You feed off other people's success and other people's failures because you have never had the courage to actually do anything important yourself. Important! Jimmy's voice cracked with fury. You think flexing your muscles and reciting lines someone else wrote for you is important. You think stumbling through political speeches and photo opportunities makes you important. I've been doing this show for years, connecting with real people, addressing real issues while you've been living in your Hollywood bubble pretending to be relevant. Connecting with real people. Arnold let out a bitter laugh. Is this how you connect with People? By ambushing them and attacking them? By spreading lies and destroying reputations? You are not connecting with anyone, Jimmy. You are dividing people. You are spreading hatred and negativity, and you are doing it for ratings and money. Jimmy stepped closer again, his face now flushed with anger. Don't you dare lecture me about money, Arnold. You've made hundreds of millions of dollars selling people fantasies. You've profited off violence in your movies. You've profited off your political connections, and now you're trying to profit off your supposed wisdom and experience. At least I'm honest about what I do. Honest? Arnold's voice reached a thunderous volume that seemed to shake the entire studio. There is nothing honest about what you are doing right now. There is nothing honest about this ambush. There is nothing honest about the way you have conducted this entire interview. You invited me here under false pretenses, and now you are trying to destroy my reputation on live television. The confrontation had now reached a fever pitch, with both men standing face to face, their voices echoing throughout the studio. Jimmy's production team could be seen frantically discussing whether to cut to commercial, but the host showed no signs of backing down. False pretenses, Jimmy snarled. I invited you here to have a real conversation, not another boring promotional interview where we pretend you're some kind of hero. I wanted to talk about the real Arnold Schwarzenegger, not the carefully manufactured public persona. If you can't handle that, then maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews at all. Arnold looked around the studio one final time, his eyes taking in the shocked faces of the audience, the nervous crew members, and the cameras that were still rolling. When he turned back to Jimmy, his expression had changed from rage to something that looked almost like pity. You know what, Jimmy? Arnold said, his voice suddenly quiet but filled with contempt. I feel sorry for you. I feel sorry for someone who has to tear other people down to feel good about himself. I feel sorry for someone who thinks that cruelty and dishonesty are the same thing as courage and truth. But mostly, I feel sorry for your audience, who came here expecting to be entertained, and instead got to watch you reveal who you really are. With that, Arnold turned away from Jimmy and began walking toward the edge of the stage. Jimmy, apparently not content to let his guest have the last word, called out after him. That's right, Arnold, just walk away. Run back to your mansion and your yes-men who tell you how great you are. But remember this, you can't terminate the truth. You can't crush it with your bare hands or blow it up with special effects. The truth is that you're not the hero you pretend to be, and everyone watching this show now knows it. Arnold stopped, dead in his tracks at the edge of the stage. For a moment, it looked like he might turn around and continue the fight. The entire studio held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. But instead of engaging further, Arnold simply shook, his head in disgust. The only thing people will remember from tonight, Jimmy, Arnold said, without turning around, is that you revealed yourself to be exactly the kind of person that America does not need. Someone who tears down instead of builds up. Someone who destroys instead of creates. Someone who chooses hatred over hope. And with those words, Arnold Schwarzenegger walked off the Jimmy Kimmel live stage, leaving behind a stunned audience, a visibly shaken host, and what would undoubtedly become one of the most talked about interviews in late-night television history. The cameras kept rolling as Jimmy stood alone on his stage, the reality of what had just happened beginning to sink in across his face. If you made it this far, you witnessed one of the most explosive celebrity confrontations ever caught on camera. Make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories like this, and comment below with your thoughts on what really drove Jimmy Kimmel to attack Arnold Schwarzenegger so viciously that night.